Welcome to the For Your Thoughts podcast, where psychology, pop culture, and self meet. I'm joined here by Adele. Can you let me know how to pronounce your last name? Spraggon?
Sure. Spraggon. Rhymes with dragon.
Spraggon. Adele Spraggon. I feel like I know you've gotten the Adele joke a million times before, like Adele, the singer. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. And she's an album. So I'm like, everyone's gonna be like, oh, is this Adele? But it's like, this is a better Adele though. Yeah. So Adele is an award-winning author, thought leader, and international speaker and trainer. She was awarded the 2020 Woman of Inspiration Award and was recognized as the top behavioral expert of the year in 2021, which is amazing. Like the top, that's a lot. Like how does that, how do you even get to that point, you know? So her book Shift is 4 steps to personal empowerment and has won multiple awards. Her book helps people on how to set and achieve their goals after decades of feeling stuck in patterns and procrastination, avoidance and quitting. And yeah, so like I said before, a lot of creatives get stuck in a lot of different patterns. And I really love how you kind of break everything down in a practical way that makes sense. We kind of hear a lot of like, just set your goals and just do that. But it's like kind of like, how really do we do that? So I would love to know more about you first. So I always ask people who they were, who they are now, and what they're trying to do for their future and the future of humanity. So we can start there and then roll it.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Mm-hmm. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Who am I or who was I?
Who were you? Who are you? And then who you plan to be and who you plan, what do you bring to the world or continue to bring to the world? Yeah.
Okay. So, well, Pennie, I've been in the personal development industry for, over 30 years now. So I started very much coaching the way that I was taught to achieve mindset, right? Or achieve goals. And that was set a goal and then determine the steps to get to that goal. If you're not taking those steps, there's something off with your mindset. Let's correct that. And then there's no reason why you shouldn't achieve your goals. And I believe this wholeheartedly. I was totally invested in that. The problem is it didn't work for me. In fact, Pennie, I was quitting business after business. I quit 3 businesses. I walked away from them. I was having panic attacks. It didn't matter how much positive thinking and affirmations I did. It was not supporting me. If I upset anybody, I had a terrible people pleasing pattern. And if I upset anybody, I would be distraught for a week. It was that bad.
Right.
And so, I finally, after I had done this to myself for 15 years, I thought to myself, surely it can't be solely my fault. There's got to be something else that's going on. So I enrolled in university. My son was in kindergarten at the time, and I thought, all right, I'm going to go figure this out. And I enrolled in university to work on what's going on in the human mind. How do we make decisions, right? I graduated with my master's and a whole lot of more information about the human equation. And I saw, yes, we are using the wrong operating instructions, I like to say. So I created new ones. I created operating instructions that actually lead to our goals. And I started teaching it. I've been teaching it for 10 years. And it's based in the brain's patterning and how to change those underlying patterns that lead to action, behavior, belief. When I started down that path and I started teaching it, in little in-house surveys, we get an 87% success rate. The difference between that and what's happening on the market, which is typically around 20-25%, is night and day, right? And it doesn't matter what the person's trying to achieve, whether it's weight loss or a business like I was, 87% succeed in achieving their goals, which is crazy, right? And yeah.
So, so I want to break it down again into something like practical. So you mentioned weight loss, which is one habit that I see people always wanting to do. They start a diet, they quit. They say it's always like every Monday, it's like, okay, I'm going to start on Monday. I'm going to start on Monday. I'll start on Monday. So maybe if you can apply that, and then we can get into your 4-step process and how that would work and just how it all makes sense.
Yeah. So let's go through the new operating instructions and we'll do it for somebody who's trying to lose weight. We'll just look at it that way, right? So the new operating instructions are this: set the goal, determine where you want to get to. Okay. Don't make it too specific and measurable though, right? So don't say like, I want to lose 20 pounds by Tuesday, which is typically what we do when we go on a diet, right?
Or I'm going to work out every single day at 5 a.m. and do a hard hit. It's like, no,
no, right. Exactly. Exactly. So let's set the goal. Like, I want to be healthy and I want to fit into my clothes better and things like that. Right. Now, the next question is not how do I get to that goal? The next question is, why am I not at that goal today? Now, that's a very different question. And what you'll find is that what starts to arise is a whole bunch of beliefs, a whole bunch of behaviors, and a whole bunch of actions that are preventing you from getting to that goal. Great. That is the under each one of those actions, behaviors, beliefs, there runs a brain pattern, which is giving rise to that action, behavior, belief. Make sense? Awesome.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So after you, so let's say, okay, I'm not working out or whatever, and I kind of put in there, maybe I'm going out too much, so in the morning I can't work out. So you write those little things down that are stopping you from doing that, and do you just start canceling those out, like those one by one, or is that what you're going to go get into?
I'm so happy, Penny, that you came up with that example, because because what we need to do is we need to stop thinking about what's the solution, and we have to start asking ourselves, what is the problem? So what you just said is a solution. I'm not waking up in time because I go out at night. Therefore, if I just stop going out at night, then I'll be able to work out early, wake up and work out. Okay, fabulous. That's actually a solution to the problem. The real problem is I'm not working out. Now, that's different, right? Because you might work out in the morning, you might work out at 5 o'clock, you might go for a walk after dinner. Like, there's no rules then for when you have to work out and what working out looks like. Okay. So identifying the problem is key. So, and tricky, as you can see, right? So brain's always looking for solution. So, so if we set the goal, okay, I want to lose, 20 pounds or just feel better, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not working out. Great. You're just going to write that down. So one of the actions is I don't work out. So the other thing might show up for you is, oh, you know what? I'm menopausal, so I'm just going to take me. Well, I'm almost 60. Like, menopausal women have struggles to lose weight. Good. That's another belief. You're going to write that down, right? And you'll see that you start to identify all these actions, behaviors, beliefs that start to show up. Okay. Now, how I'd like you to think of your brain is like an iceberg. At the top of the water is all your actions, all your behaviors, all your beliefs. Everything that a person does, feels, thinks is at the top of that iceberg. Under the water is where the brain patterns lie. So when we think about this brain of ours, the easiest way to think about it is like it's inside this house, this bony skull.
Right.
It has no access to the outside world. It's dark in here. It's silent in here. There's no touch. There's no taste. There's nothing in here except these electrical impulses, right? All right. So information is streaming in through our senses. We see a cookie, right? And we think, oh, I want to eat that cookie, but we're not actually relating to that cookie. We're actually relating to a brain pattern that says we want to eat the cookie. That's different. Right. So if we can start to see it like that, it's like, oh, okay, I'm working on the wrong thing. I'm biting my lip, trying not to eat the cookie. Like, instead, why don't I just remove the pattern that wants the cookie? Right. Let's just take that out of the brain. Now I don't have a problem with that cookie. Put cookies in front of me. I don't care. Right? Like I used to drink red wine every single night. I thought I was addicted. I mean, if you had seen me, you would say, okay, Adele's addicted to red wine. Like that's how people would relate to me. Right. So I did what I always do. I repatterned it. I took that pattern away. Today, you can put a bottle of wine in front of me. I'm not tempted in the slightest. Like I just have no relationship to wine, because I don't have a brain pattern for wine. So how does one, so you recognize the beliefs and you recognize all of that, but how does one actually actively break that pattern? Great question.
Yeah.
So that's where my book comes in. So the 4
Mhm.
steps to repatterning, the 4 steps are outlined in there.
Mhm.
The 4 steps, I can just briefly go through them. And they, it's very helpful though to take one step at a time and do one step for a week, and then the next step for a week, and then the next step for a week as you're learning the technique. Once you have the technique, it's like having the tool in your pocket and you can just use it anytime you need it. Okay. But as you learn it, it's helpful to slow it down and take it one step so the brain gets used to repatterning itself.
Mhm.
So the 4 steps are as follows. First, we identify the pattern. So what we just did was we identified the top of the iceberg, the action, behavior, belief. But a pattern lies under the water. So I'm going to give a definition of a pattern. A pattern is an intertwined physical sensation, emotion, and thought. When the 3 aspects of our being come together, they give rise to an action, a behavior, belief. So to identify the pattern, we need to identify, okay, there's the cookie. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling that? And what is the thought? So the thought might be, wow, I really crave that cookie. The emotion might be desire. And the physical sensation might be a rumbling in the stomach, for example, right? Great. That's a sign of a pattern. So that would be step 1. The next step is, like I said, the brain's inside this bony skull. We're actually not relating to the cookie. We're relating to this pattern. So we need to flip that switch and we just own it as a pattern. Okay, so that's step 2. We're gonna own it as a pattern, not as a cookie. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yay.
It's not the cookie, it's a pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the 3rd step is to deconstruct, and that means we're gonna tease apart the connection, the intertwining between that physical sensation, that emotion, that thought, because it's that intertwining that gives rise to the action. So we're going to put those 3 aspects of our being back separated into their respective place. And that's tricky to understand, but when you read the book, it makes sense.
Right.
And then the 4th step is we're going to create a new pattern, and the brain actually has already done that for you. That step's the easy step because our brain is always rewiring itself. It wants to rewire itself. There is only one problem on this planet, and that's that nobody has taught us how to work the brain effectively.
Right. So are you saying that once you recognize those 3, it's kind of like almost inevitable that the pattern is like going to change?
Exactly. So once you've done steps 1 through 3, the brain automatically, nature abhors a vacuum. Has everybody heard that saying? Right? Like it just won't live with nothing. So it will automatically
just keep doing whatever it knows to do.
That's the problem when we have an existing pattern. We just keep taking the same action over and over and over again. And it's not our fault, right? Like, okay, latest finding in neuroscience is super exciting and at the same time can sound a little scary when you first hear it. If we hook somebody's brain up to a brain scanner, that brain scanner would be able to see every action that that person is going to take before the person knows they're going to take that action.
Yeah.
Action is originating in the unconscious regions of the brain, and then the conscious mind just catches up to what the brain is, or the action the person is already taking and going, I want to do that. I want to eat that cookie. No, I'm sorry. You're already in motion towards that cookie before you even notice the cookie is there, right? So how do we back up the truck? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to back that train down the track when it's already rolling.
Right.
That's really hard. And that's why control does not work. I mean, it just doesn't.
Yeah, most of the time, like when you make a bad decision, it's like after you've made it, you're kind of like, dang, and you're really trying to figure out, like, and especially if you've gone to therapy and you feel like you've actively done all of these things and you're healed and all this stuff, but then you're placed back in that situation and you do the same thing over again. You're like, God damn it. Like, you're like, oh my God, like I thought that I knew better. But when you're placed in that situation, it's a whole another story. That's what this is reminding me of. This actually happened to me. That's why I'm saying that. Like last weekend, actually, it's like, of course, I've been in therapy. I was in Kenya for about 3 months, so I haven't really, seen people or whatever the case may be. Go on a date, and I feel like the same pattern that I've been working to break just happened again. And it's kind of crazy because I just knew that I was just like, I'm healed, I'm that girl, and this is not happening again. And it did. And I was beating myself up so much for it because I just thought that it couldn't, but it's because I wasn't even placed in that situation again to test it. And I guess I didn't destruct all of those pieces and I guess refresh myself of that, before. So that makes
you
sense.
got
Yeah.
it. You
Yeah.
That's absolutely how patterns work.
Yeah.
So but here's the thing, patterns are only trying to keep us safe, right? So we're not born with patterns. We're not like other animals. Other animals are born with instincts. They know exactly what to do. They enter this world and they need very little guidance in order to do it. Okay.
Right.
Human beings are born a blank slate. You got to learn everything. So from the moment that you're born, your brain is very quickly trying to piece together patterns in order to know what action to take. So when you were little and you're going through this world, every situation that you face, your brain takes the action that you just took and stores it for future use. And it goes, okay, that's great. Now, when I encounter a similar situation, your brain thinks, it goes, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can just use that action. That's exactly what's happening. Okay. So you're in on this date and it's using a pattern from the past that's not actually aligned with the current situation. And then we beat ourselves up from taking that action, but that action has already been taken by the unconscious regions of the brain.
Right.
So there's no blame or shame in repatterning. I like to say there's nothing to fix. Absolutely nothing to fix. All we have to do is reflect back and go, oh, that didn't work. Wow, I thought I'd repattern that. And here it is again. Okay, great. Now you've got the 4-step tool in your pocket. You're going to apply that to that action, whatever you just did. And once you've removed the pattern, that action will never arise again. I never have to fight red wine. I just don't have a pattern for it, right? That's the difference.
So, I guess I think I know the answer to this. Like avoiding environments or avoiding people that bring about certain negative patterns or toxic patterns. Is that a smart thing to do, or is it a better thing to face them head on, until you fix the pattern? When it comes to healing and when it comes to just being better. Yeah.
Oh, I love that question. If you don't have a way to repattern, then avoiding is your best option.
Right.
Okay. That's number one. So if you don't know anything about the brain and how it works, and you've got no way to remove that action because the brain is taking that action, then yes, avoiding, absolutely, right? Make sure the conditions around you are aligned with your current patterns. If, on the other hand, you know how to repattern, then every situation that you face that doesn't work, it's like Yahoo, because now I can see the pattern and I got a tool in my pocket. I can deal with it, and Yahoo, bring it on, right?
Yes.
So we stop avoiding, we start actually dancing through life, because it's like, sure, I can take it.
You're just getting better and like breaking down the iceberg, like literally into the core. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Let's just chip away at it until we have all these optimal patterns that we're running on. And then, I like to say happiness is your birthright. Like everybody has the right for fundamentally to feel joy. And that's what the brain is actually trying to achieve all the time. It's in a state of joy when it's optimally aligned with what's going on.
So, do you think that, like, okay, whether it's a family member or friend, someone, or even if you're married or in a close relationship and you are aware of your patterns that might be negatively impacting the relationship, is that something you bring about or talk about, especially if that person maybe isn't into all this, or or is that something that you just like own to yourself and like take the L and keep it pushing,
Yeah, another great question.
And if you were to explain that to somebody, how would you even go about that? Especially if you care about this person.
Right, that's a great question. So, I work with individuals and I work with couples. I have a program where they just go from I hate you, I want to divorce you, to oh, you're the love of my life, and it literally happens within 8 weeks.
Wow.
So how does that happen? If you have two people who are working on their own pattern, it's goes much faster. Okay. But let's say that there's only one person and they're working on their patterns and the other person is just doing their thing. So let's think about this. Remember I said that this brain of ours is locked inside this bony skull. It has no access to the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, Penny, are you seeing me?
Mm-hmm.
You think it seems like we are actually seeing each other and relating to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from the
Mm-hmm.
moment I came on this call, your brain had to very quickly piece together a pattern in order to know what to say and how to act, right?
Right.
And it's that pattern that you keep relating to. And I keep relating to my pattern for you. So my brain very quickly formed a pattern for Penny,
Right.
taking everything that I knew from my past and everything that
No,
right
right
and
now. Mm-hmm.
know right now in order to congeal into a pattern that I can now take action with. Okay, perfect.
Right.
So between every person and another person, there lives that person's pattern.
Mm-hmm.
If we know that, right, then it's really easy to interact on a very different level. It's like, oh, okay, wow, I'm seeing that you said XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
My pattern is reacting in this way, right? I'm getting angry because, boy, am I triggered right now. If you know that's a pattern that's triggered, you get to deconstruct that. Now, what is going to happen then? Now you've removed that pattern for this other person. I deconstruct my pattern for Penny and I just don't have a pattern anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen is I very quickly have to create a new pattern. And
Right.
you show up brand new to me.
Mm-hmm.
You do things that surprise me. And I go,
Right. Okay,
wow,
this is
I didn't know
good.
that Penny was like
Yeah.
that. Like, wow,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. Right.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like you've changed. No, my pattern for you has changed.
Right.
That's why you show up differently.
Right. And that's kind of like, when people give advice, they're kind of like switch it up or just do something different. Or in that case, this is like a better way of saying it. And a practical way that is actual science. It's kind of like just like do better, switch it up. And yeah, like that makes sense. That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense actually. And
Yeah, because
that'll help rewire their pattern as well. Because you guys won't have that same thing that y'all are safe and comfortable in anymore.
you got it. You got it.
Right.
So you change your pattern for the other person, right? You're also changing your reaction to that pattern at the same time. So say that you did something and I got triggered every time you did it. And every time you did it, I would say the same sentence, right? And you and I are back and forth in this same action happening over and over again. Okay, I change my pattern. You show up brand new. I go, oh my gosh, I never heard Penny say that before, right? Now I'm reacting differently to you, and that forces you to have to change your pattern and react back differently.
Wow, that's so simple. It's kind of crazy how simple it really is. It's like, dang, why didn't we think of this before?
It's so easy. I know, this is the thing. Like when I got it, I went, oh, this is brilliant. Like we don't have to work on anything. There's nothing to fix. We don't have to communicate better, right? I only have to know what's not working for me. I only have to say that it doesn't work for me. I don't have to worry really about whether it works for you, but let me just explain what I just said. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work for anybody, if there's a conflict in the situation, then it's not actually working for me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I get to look from a very self position, a very selfish position, you could almost say, and say, wow, I'm really unhappy inside the conflict. I get to own that as my pattern. I get to remove that pattern. You get to be happy along for the ride.
Right. So, exactly. Right?
And there's so much joy in that. It's and like,
there's so much joy. Yeah.
Good.
And there's this thing, it's called like kind of like being the main character in your life. And it just makes life 10 times better for yourself and others when you show up that way. So that makes so much sense. What would you say is like a main negative pattern that you've seen amongst maybe family dynamics and like married dynamics, like a top one that is just really common that you see that you're just like, let's,
Yeah, there's one very, very common pattern was identified by Stephen Cartman in the 1960s, and that is the Cartman triangle, it's called. It's the triangle of rescuer, persecutor, victim. Have you heard this triangle?
I haven't yet. Mm-hmm.
So if you, in many families, in fact, forget families, it occurs between countries, it occurs between government bodies, it occurs in politics. You'll see this triangle everywhere once I identify it for you.
Mhm.
If you put a triangle upside down, so that the point is at the bottom,
Mhm.
left-hand corner, put the word rescuer, right-hand corner, put the word persecutor, bottom corner, put the word victim. Okay.
Mhm.
In any conflict, you're going to see these three roles arising. Okay. And
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
move around these roles. Cartman called it rapid switching. And the faster you can move around those three roles, the more confusion you create and the more conflict gets created.
Mhm.
The rescuer is the person who moves in and wants to protect the victim. So, mothers will often do this with children. So the father is having an argument with the child saying, you need to do your homework. The mother will rush in and say, oh, it's okay, honey. I told them that they could just watch TV for an hour. Okay, great. The roles are the father is acting like the persecutor, right? The
Mhm.
child is the victim, the one who needs to be rescued. The mother comes in and rescues. But you'll keep moving around this, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now the father thinking, oh gosh, now I look like the bad guy. He moves
Right.
into the victim, right? And he'll say something
Right.
like, why are you always protecting the kids, right? Okay, great. So, and the mother will then move into the
To
victim
victim,
role,
right?
right?
And
You
then a
get it?
lot of the times the kid will go to the rescuer for the mom, for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's okay, mama. We'll do our homework. It's okay.
Yeah.
Trying to rescue the mother. And this
Very
triangle
interesting.
just it creates so much conflict.
Mhm.
So as pattern makers, we use that triangle, but only to identify it, right? The beautiful thing about repatterning, as I said before, is we don't have to fix anything. Once oh, wow, I really see these dynamics playing out in the family, and I see that they don't work. Now you can remove each of those patterns, and you
Mhm.
will naturally step into a different triangle. And
Mhm.
that's the what I call the pattern maker triangle of wisdom, compassion, and trust. And
Mm.
those three roles, instead of pulling people apart, they actually pull people together. It's like the
Mhm.
wisdom to be able to say, hey, I see a pattern arising. I'm going to own that. The compassion to see that it's just a pattern and that, everybody has patterns and it's not
Yeah.
personal. And
Mhm.
then the trust that once that pattern gets removed, a new pattern will take its place, which will take care of everybody.
Right. That makes sense. That makes so much sense. Because it's kind of like once you have that, like once the mom once dad understands why mom is doing this and why mom understands why dad's doing this, it's kind of like that compassion starts there, which will kind of like break that as well.
Yeah.
Kind of,
And I mean,
right.
like it's interesting because patterns, as I said, they get created in our youth and in our childhood. And then we just continue to run that old obsolete pattern
Right.
over and over again. So mom isn't meaning to rescue. She just has a pattern that rescues. Dad isn't meaning to persecute. He just has a pattern that persecutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so to know that is like, oh, okay. They're not trying to get on my nerves.
Yeah. Or they're not trying to go at each other. Right.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
They just have a
So
pattern.
I heard somewhere it was another podcast that you did where you kind of how a lot of people are always the internet really is into this whole inner child thing, which is very much so true, and like the patterns from your childhood, not bringing them or like going back that way to rearrange that, but sometimes you don't remember them, or sometimes it's not even that case in a sense. So definitely speak to that, because I think that people are definitely stuck in that lexicon, and I know that there's like more to it.
One of the key things when I was back in my old days, trying
Mm-hmm.
to deal with everything through mindset, one of the things that I was repeatedly told to do was to find the originating incident, right? So, I had a problem and people would say,
Mm-hmm.
well, what happened in your childhood? What
Right.
caused that pattern? And I'd be going,
It's like
I
typical
don't
psychologist question that everyone thinks. Yeah.
exactly. And I'd be going, but I don't remember, right? So now, Penny, I had two problems. I had the problem that I was currently facing, and I had the problem of not remembering the originating incident. And this
Mm-hmm.
drove me crazy because I thought, well, how can I fix what I'm going through today if I can't remember what was happening back then?
Mm-hmm.
Forget it. way too
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah.
All right. You don't
Sorry
need
enough to
know.
deal with right now.
Exactly. Let's stick to today, shall we? Let's not worry
Mhm.
about the past. I mean, if somebody remembers the past, great. We can repattern that too. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that you shouldn't remember the past. I'm just saying if you don't, take a deep breath because it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
The pattern is arising here now. The pattern is that intertwined physical sensation, emotion, thought that you can identify here. You don't need to know where the pattern originated. You can change it starting here now, right?
Mhm.
And, interestingly, when we change a pattern, it ripples all the way into our past and changes our entire relationship with our past anyway, right? Because that past is
Right.
also arising now. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
we tend to think of the past as if it actually happened, but really it's the memory of that past that is showing up here now. And if
Right.
that memory is
Here now, then it would be rearranged because it's with the rearranging of the pattern.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You
Yeah.
got it. You got it.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes, so we have a
freedom.
lot of exactly. We have a lot of creatives that listen to the podcast, especially young ones with new ideas, new projects, things that people have not even developed before. Very innovative. And one thing that I have seen is a lot of procrastination, like kind of masked as like perfectionism. So I'd love for you to speak to that, and then also. I think that people procrastinate because they think that they might fail at it, or or if the idea is too big. So kind of speak to that and like just different quick ways that people can combat that procrastination who have those big, creative projects and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. You might need to have me back. So
Yes.
this is a big topic. I teach, I'm what is called a thought leader, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, you said before, I'm recognized award winner. And I think the reason that I am is because I have found a way to tap into my right hemisphere of my brain. And I'll just explain what I just said. I have found a way to tap into the vast warehouse within my brain, being everything that I have seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched, all the sense data is stored in the unconscious regions of the brain. When we know how to remove the existing pattern, our brain will go there to form a new pattern. Have I lost you? Or does that
Well,
make
so
sense?
okay, so the right is the unconscious.
So no,
So-
not quite. Okay, so the
Okay.
right and the left hemisphere is a little tricky to understand,
Okay.
but I'm going to use Ian McGilchrist. If anybody wants to know the difference between the hemispheres, Ian McGilchrist has a fantastic book out there. It's called The Master and His Emissary, The Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World. Okay. But basically what he has discovered is that the right hemisphere is our present moment now hemisphere. It's absorbing everything that's happening here now. Okay. It's passing that information over to the left hemisphere, where the left hemisphere divides and separates and informs you of what is going on now. So the left hemisphere holds the language center of the brain. Okay. So the right hemisphere is present. It's always present. The left hemisphere pulls information from your past, pulls that patterning, we can call it, to interpret what's going on in the now based on what it knows from the past. Okay. All right,
Got
everybody
it.
got that. Okay. Ideally, that left brain pattern is passed back to the right for context, for integration into what's going on. And you are supposed to be relating to what's actually going on, ideally. But over the generations, the corpus callosum, the band of tissue that divides the two hemispheres, has been thickening. Okay. And in that thickening, that information is not being passed back as readily anymore. So the left isn't sharing that information with the right. Okay. Questions about that?
Okay. I got it.
Okay. So think about it in a creative brain, you need the present moment. You need to be constantly aware of what's actually going on in the moment and absorbing all of that material, because the present moment is always in flow, right?
Right.
And it's there that all the new information arises.
Right.
What is perfectionism? Perfectionism is when we use only left brain patterns and we just keep spinning around inside the left hemisphere, perfecting, reusing, recycling what we already know. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Making sense?
Uh-huh.
When we are able to let that go and pass that information back to the right is able to bring context. And in that context, things show up newly and that perfectionism disappears. Nature isn't
Right.
perfect. Nature
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give a hoot about perfection. In fact, she goes, make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And in that mistake, she creates perfection. Okay.
Right.
Ideally, that's what human beings are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to be creative beings, right? And in that, we need to let go of that left brain patterning that is constantly creating the familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So would you say that we as creatives stay either stuck mainly in the right side of the brain, like we're mainly just, because some creatives, they're just in flow, they're in whatever, but nothing is actually getting made or like executed, and then you have some of them who they stay in this side of the brain where you have all of your list, all of these things, but it's not in, like, so basically you're saying we need to do a better job at making them coincide.
You got it. It's the whole brain that is the way to happiness, joy, creativity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that the left brain is bad and the right brain is
Right.
good. It's that when we strengthen the communication between these hemispheres, that's where you get into creativity. Perfectionism is when we get trapped in the left hemisphere. La la, woo woo, not actually creating anything is when we get trapped in the right hemisphere. Our job is to build that communication.
And you mentioned, I think it's called the corpus callosum in the middle. You said it's getting thicker over time, like with evolution.
With evolution, yeah.
As of like, when do you think? Is this like a new thing, like with social media, or it's just
no, I mean, we've become left brain dominant when you look throughout history. And Ian McGilchrist actually does this in this book. And he looks back all the way through history and he can see how the left brain has become more and more dominant. And all the problems in today's world are formed by this left brain dominance, right? And it's not, again, it's not that the left brain is bad or wrong. It's that without the right brain's integration, it has no context. That's what's happening. And you can see it, like things are taken out of context, that personal, that conspiracy theories, all of that is because it's lacking the context needed in today's environment.
Right. That's good. That's good. So what are some things people can do to, activate the right more and integrate those? Like is there any...
Great. Yeah. Well, the 4-step repatterning technique is actually building that communication. That's what it's actually
I'll definitely have the book link in the bio for everyone and everything like that for sure.
Other things you can do, you know what, Jill Bolte Taylor, I understand she has a new book out. Jill Bolte Taylor is a neuroscientist. She had a stroke in her left hemisphere. And so she was operating only through the right hemisphere, which if you've ever seen her TED Talk, it's brilliant. I understand she has a book out too, which also has a technique to rebuild the hemisphere. I haven't read it yet, but that's somewhere else.
I'll put it in there as well as a resource for sure. Yeah. And lastly, I saw that you mentioned like money patterns, which is one thing I think that young people are definitely need to break as we get into adulting and things like that, learning how to spend our money, knowing, especially as Black creatives, knowing our worth and how to ask for more money. That's a huge thing right now. So can you speak to that as well? And then we'll start to wrap it up for sure.
Yeah, so money is a really interesting pattern. If you look at money, it is one of the only, I'm going to say the only, but let's say one of the only few things on this planet that doesn't actually have anything in reality and nature that relates to it, right? So if you look at a tree, yes, you have a pattern for tree. Okay, that's arising in your brain, but there is a physical tree out there. When you think about money, it used to be attached to something physical. It used to be attached to gold or silver, right? And then to currency. Today, what is it?
It's like on the computer. It's like crypto.
Exactly. It's nothing, right? And yet, because it's a left brain pattern, because it's nothing, we make it into everything. Does that make sense?
Right.
Once something actually doesn't have something in reality and nature, like I'm holding up a cup, right? There's a real cup here. Yeah. I'm limited by this cup in order to call it a cup. You're not limited with money for anything. So money becomes my value. Money becomes self-worth. Money becomes success, money becomes status, money becomes all power. It becomes all of these different things because it doesn't actually relate to anything. But once you know that, Penny, you got your power.
Right.
Money's a pattern. I can deconstruct that pattern. If that pattern is not working for me, if I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm not successful because I don't have money, and I know that money is a pattern, I can remove that relationship between success and money. Now you'll show up successful without money. You don't need money to be successful, right? Money and status. Okay, I got it. I'm feeling like I'm down here and this person's up there because they have more money.
Or getting treated as such, in America for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now you get to own that as your pattern, right? Remove that pattern.
Knowing that that's not true. Well, yeah, or it is true, but knowing that it's a pattern that's not really like real, right?
Right. So, I mean, I'm glad you brought up truth, because there are facts. Yes, people treat people lesser than if they don't have money. That's a fact, right? But that doesn't have to be your truth. See the difference? It's who you're being in the face of that matters.
Right.
And that
and what you think of yourself.
Do you adopt that? Do you believe that because they're telling you that? Great. Now you've got a pattern in your brain that's believing that. You get to remove that.
Right. And you don't have
it doesn't matter what they think.
That makes sense. That makes so much sense. Okay. So the last question, I do always want to know, for behavioral experts, mental health people, psychologists who are really into this, how do they kind of operate in the real world, like with their friends and stuff? Like once you know these things about patterns, and do you it's kind of hard not to call your friends out, and you're like, if you just do this. So I really always want to know, how do you guys cope with that? Because I can even find myself, being like, girl, you can work out if you just do this. So how have you learned to live in this world with all of this in your brain?
I love that question. So a couple of things. If as I said before, I work with couples. If they ever say you should go repattern, I always flip it around to say, no, you need to go repattern. Because the pattern is always arising inside the person. It's not actually to do with what the other person is doing. So that's the first thing. If I ever think to myself that person should go repattern, I go, oh, okay, Adele, go repattern. You
gotta do that, right?
I gotta do that work, right?
Right.
They get to show up brand new because I'm changing my pattern, not because they changed. Right?
Gotcha. That's so good. That's so good.
The second thing is, oftentimes we're accused of being something. So we get thrown a label at, or we're told, you are such a F
know-it-all,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So at that point, here's what
or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. You're so woo-woo. Great.
Yeah.
So the best response to that is, thank you. I didn't realize that. I will take care of it. What am I saying? Okay, what am I saying? Because it's really key. They're telling me what their pattern is saying about me. They're not talking about me at all. I know that between me and them, there lives their pattern. And I know that that's what they're interacting with. So the first thing I get to do is I get to step back from what they're saying, right? And all right, now, if I'm triggered, if what they said, Adele, you're so woo-woo, and I go, wow, that really stung. Great, I'm triggered. That's my pattern. So what am I saying when I say, thank you? I didn't realize that. I'll take care of that. And I'm saying it sincerely. I'm not being facetious, right? What I'm actually saying is, thank you for showing me one of my patterns. I will go away and repattern that. Right? So great. This is why ownership of the pattern becomes so powerful.
Right.
It's like nobody can say anything. It's
right.
Like, oh, okay. Or if you did know, like, let's say somebody says, gosh, you're so, I don't know. And it's something that I believe myself to be, and I know about that. Thank you. I didn't know about that. I am working on that.
Yeah.
But thanks for
take ownership of it and keep it moving.
Because it's just a pattern anyway.
It's just a pattern. Right? Yeah, exactly.
It's just a pattern. They're not saying anything about me. If they are saying anything about me, I know it's a pattern. I can change that. So, so full power, you get it all. You get to own everything as yours, which is amazing. Right?
I love that. I love that. So last thing, I always end with my guests letting me know like what's been bringing them peace of mind, or like whether it's like this week or what normally brings you peace of mind. Just so you just go for it. You can take the question however you want.
Well, I always repent twice a day, 2 times a day, whether I need it or not.
Yeah.
So that keeps me in that aligned with the present
Mhm.
moment. That keeps me tapping to the right hemisphere. What really brings me peace of mind though is honestly creating. My brain is just creative firing all the time, and I'm
Mhm.
just really content in that creative space.
Mhm.
And
Love
but
that.
thank goodness, having said that, Penny, it's because I repatterned my perfectionist pattern. That's the
Yes.
only reason, because before creativity for me was hell. I'll just
Mhm.
be honest, because
Yeah.
I was always like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. And I was beating myself
Really
up.
like it. Yeah. I used to be like that so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So once I
You love
remove
that.
that, then it's like,
Repattern. So it's like so repatterning is what brings you peace of mind, which is great.
there
It's a
you
great.
go.
It's a great ending.
There you
It's
go.
actually perfect. Thank you so much. Can you let the people know where to find you? I'm definitely going to put it in the bio as well. But just like people, like your social media handles and anything else you would like to.
Yeah, just if you
Mm-hmm.
Google my name, Adele Spraggon, you'll find everything. AdeleSpraggon.com is the website where you can get a free copy of my book there. Just go into book. All I ask is that people pay for the shipping. I'll send you
Mm-hmm.
an autographed copy.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, there's a 30-day free trial of my member site if anybody wants to just try it out and give it a
Super
try.
dope. Yes.
Get everything in there. We operate on what is called the optimal payment plan. So one thing that when COVID hit, Penny, I'm a little slow. Okay. When COVID hit, I would really woke up to the world's distribution, the wealth distribution on the planet. And I really
Mhm.
saw, wow, this isn't working. And so I did what I always do. I repatterned it. And what came to us as a team was the optimal payment plan. So there's prices set for everything that I offer on the website. But if that's not within somebody's means, there's a drop down menu and they just select a
That's
price
so
that is
good.
within their means. And there's no judgment. There's no like, I don't even see what people pay. I
Right.
don't care. It doesn't matter to
Right.
me.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
so good. Because it's like sometimes people don't have access as a main thing. They don't have access to these things that can make them better. That will, have them having a better, like more abundant in money, more abundant in wellness. It's just an access thing.
You got it. You got
So,
it. And there's full
yeah.
scholarships too. If somebody
Oh,
can't
that's
afford
great.
anything, then it's like just reach out. We've got
That's
full
so
scholarships.
amazing.
So
Thank you so much. It was
yeah.
it was so great talking to you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Penny. Thank you
Yes,
for
thank
having
you.
me.
Yes, have a good, is it evening or night there? I'm not sure what it is, but
Evening.
evening. Yes, have a good
Yes.
evening. Thank you so
Thank
much. And
you.
I'll send over everything like the YouTube and everything like that to I think his name, I forgot exactly what his name was. Carl. To
Carl.
Carl. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Penny.
Okay, bye.
Bye.